and welcome to the Riyal Deal. Coming to you from the Al Arabiya English studios, this is your weekly bulletin bringing you all the latest business news headlines and analysis from Saudi Arabia. Coming up, Saudi Arabia has a new investment minister. Fahd bin Abdul Jalil Al Saif is appointed to that position. Plus, we're going to be speaking to the CEO of AstroLabs, which helps companies to enter and navigate the Saudi market. We ask, how do they do this and who are their typical clients? We'll be hearing from the CEO of the Saudi low-cost carrier Flyadeal, who tells us that 2026 is off to a flying start. And as Formula E continues to expand its global footprint, Saudi Arabia is now a key stop in the motorsports calendar. We'll be speaking to the Formula E CEO. And with Ramadan well underway, we take you to meet one of the busy Riyadh food market's vendors who are reporting brisk trade. This as people stock up on produce for the iftar. Taking you straight to our top story. As part of a cabinet reshuffle, Saudi Arabia has a new investment minister. Fahd bin Abdul Jalil Al Saif has been appointed to the position, replacing Khalid Al Faleh, who served in that role since 2020. With a strong track record in both the public and private sectors, Al Saif, who formerly worked for HSBC, he also previously headed up the Global Capital Finance Division and Investment Strategy at the Public Investment Fund, which is chaired by the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Well, in line with plans to transform the kingdom and diversify away from oil dependency, the kingdom is targeting $100 billion in annual foreign direct investment by the year 2030. Well, I'm joined now by Jameel Ahmad, who is the Chief Analyst at GTC and also a global markets commentator. He joins us this week from Istanbul. Thanks a lot for joining us, Jameel. Saudi Arabia's trade balance recorded a record surplus of some 22 billion Saudi riyals during the month of November. That's annual growth of more than 70%. Just talk us through that.
Yes, so the annual growth was at more than 70%, and actually that goes in line with so many of the updated economic projections we saw for 2025, because clearly that's huge activity. But what I really want to highlight on here is that you're seeing the imports are quite high, showing that the Saudi Arabian economy is getting the materials and the goods that it needs as it builds up towards the 2030 vision. But it's actually the export numbers that are particularly more impressive, because we are still seeing a lot of non-oil activity, but we're also seeing the percentage of how much oil exports means to the economy in the greater scheme of things is still starting to get lower. So it does show the strategic outline and the evolution of the economy. It's working, and at the same time, it does appear that the Saudi economy is going to be one of the larger economies to grow in 2026. So we are expecting to see more export numbers such as this over the upcoming months.
Okay, just tell us which markets are importing the most goods from Saudi Arabia?
So if we look at from an energy dependency, then we are getting a lot of the South Asian economies, such as Japan, South Korea, India, and China. But the latter two are also importing other goods. In the region, we are seeing the MENA accounts for about 10 to 15% of the exports, with the UAE as the main trading partner. Well, we're starting to see some growth pick up, and I think that's where scope is to continue to improve over the future, is with the Western markets, including the United States. They actually account between 5 to 10% of overall Saudi Arabian economy exports. So should the economy continue to export more in the future, and that seems to be in line with the 2030 plans, then I would look and expect for the Western markets and those more traditional economies in the G10 to be the ones that are going to pick up some of the slack.
Okay, and Jameel, we've been talking a lot on this channel the last few days about geopolitical tensions in the region. I'm just wondering, what's that doing to the financial markets, not just in the region, but across the world?
We are seeing a lot of, I would say, investors being indecisive on positions. If you're looking at some of the trends that are coming out on Wall Street, we're looking now specifically S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and so forth. This week, there's been, I would say, every trading day has been different. We're not exactly having a positive week. That might also be due to policy uncertainty from Washington and elsewhere, such as central bank policy. Also, when it comes to the trade tariffs, we've got that Supreme Court rulings due out later on this week. But I would say that when it comes to geopolitics and investor uncertainty, investors don't like to take on risk. So if you do have some geopolitical, I would say, tensions out there, then they won't be adding as much risk into the portfolio. Having said that, oil prices are up about 5% this week. However, historically, in the greater scheme of things, US oil price at $65 is not particularly high, but I would say that 5% move does mean that investors are pricing a little bit of risk, but potentially not enough considering how sensitive this period might be.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for talking us through all of that. Jameel Ahmad, the Chief Analyst at GTC and Global Markets Commentator. Thank you for your time. Okay, we're going to turn our attention now to the fast-growing aviation sector. And following on from a record-breaking performance in 2025, Jeddah's King Abdulaziz International Airport has been achieving some historic milestones in 2026 as well. Well, last year, the airport handled 53.4 million passengers. And in January, the kingdom's busiest airport saw its highest ever number of passengers in a single day, with more than 195,300 travellers passing through the terminals in a 24-hour period alone. Well, with KAIA, the primary hub for millions of pilgrims, airlines are operating additional flights throughout the course of Ramadan. Well, Flyadeal is a Saudi Arabian low-cost airline which is headquartered there in Jeddah, and it happens to be the fastest-growing airline in the Middle East. Well, we caught up with the CEO of Flyadeal, Stephen Greenway, who confirmed that 2026 is off to a flying start. Here are some excerpts from that interview.
Our capacity for January was up 37% year on year, which is huge. You know, we're not a small airline. We're not a huge airline, but we're not a small one either. We've had 44 aircraft. Our 45th arrives on Monday next week. Just to give you a comparison, that was 300,000 extra seats year on year just for the month of January alone that we were flying that we didn't fly last year. So it is booming. And Jeddah it's interesting. It's the second airport, of Riyadh's the primary airport, but it's actually bigger than Riyadh. And a lot of it has to do with the traffic mix. We have a lot of pilgrims coming into Jeddah, and that boosts the numbers up over Riyadh.
Okay, so you got that cadet training program in Saudi Arabia. I mean, that does suggest, doesn't it, and everyone talks about a shortage of pilots in the open market. Is that something you're struggling with? Is it difficult to recruit pilots?
It's real for the rest of the world. It's not for me. I get asked quite a lot, and we don't have a shortage at all. So as I said, we have quite a good pipeline of first officers coming in who have a commercial pilot's license. They need to be type rated onto our aircraft. We have a program with the Ministry of Education to do that in Spain. So that's really supplying that through. And it's also, Saudi Arabia has now become very, very attractive to live in. So when we do require foreigners, particularly for our captains, we don't have a problem or a challenge to be able to bring them into the kingdom.
You're in a challenging industry. We've already talked about the difficulty of finding pilots, although you're saying that's not a particular challenge for Flyadeal.
No.
One of the other big problems for airlines is finding aeroplanes. And there are a lot of reports circulating about some pretty major orders in the pipeline in Saudi Arabia, not necessarily Flyadeal ones, but at the moment, you've got 44 aircraft, I think, at the moment.
Yes,
is that right?
Yeah.
What's on order, and what are your plans to grow the fleet?
So I think the kingdom has something like 600 or so aircraft on order over the next 4 to 5 years. Now, part of that is our order book. We have 44 aircraft at the moment. 45th arrives in a couple of days, and we have an expansion plan over the next 3 to 4 years that gets us to just shy of 100 aircraft, actually 98, and that is a mix of short haul in terms of our 320s and 321s, and also now long haul in terms of our A330s, which will allow us to do give us true global reach, I suppose. So in a very, very short amount of time, we're going to be more than doubling in size, but also capability in terms of being able to stretch our network further.
Okay, let's talk about destinations for a moment.
Yeah.
43 destinations as things currently stand. They all seem to be short, medium haul for now. And you've got 5 new destinations in Pakistan that you're serving. Syria is a market that's opened up for you in the last year or so. Where are you going to focus next?
I love opening up new markets. Syria is an interesting one for me. We're into Damascus from both Jeddah and Riyadh, and we hope, if we get security clearance in literally the next 2 weeks, we can open up Aleppo, which is the second largest city in Syria. So with the civil war now done, or out of the way, hopefully, the country is now back opening up, and there's a lot of Syrians in the kingdom. There's 2 million Syrians living and working in the kingdom. So there's this huge opportunity in terms of market share. Our backyard, we still don't fly to a lot of places in the GCC. Bahrain, Doha as an example. So there's some easy ones there that we'll focus on over the next couple of years. You mentioned Pakistan, 5 cities in the past year alone. We've just celebrated our first anniversary there. And we've also been speaking about India for this year. So we want to open up India probably in the second half of the year. So that's our immediate term. And then we want to push as far as Malaysia, Indonesia, and Bangladesh and so forth with our new A330s next year. So we really are stretching the model.
Where and how do you see Flyadeal playing a part with Vision 2030?
I think there's really three business models in the market at the moment. One is the premium, and that is Saudi at the moment, but soon to be Riyal. You have a hybrid, which is FlyNAS, our biggest competitor. So they're a bit mixed. They have a business class cabin. They also have an LCC cabin down the back. And then we're a pure play. And I say it unromantically, we're a bus. We get people from A to B safely, on time, we do not cancel, and we're cheap. And as long as we stick to that proposition, I think we've got a winner. Because people know, even if they only paid 100 SAR, they know that we've got reliability, they know they're going to get from A to B on time, et cetera, et cetera. And that is a really, really valuable proposition. And don't forget, Saudi Arabia is a big country. They need air travel, and we want to be able to take our Saudi Arabians to the world, and we want to bring the world to Saudi Arabia. And so we are that mass market travel option in terms of air travel option, and we'll continue to play that in the years to come.
Okay, so you play very neatly into the Vision 2030 ambitions and goals.
Absolutely, we're a key enabler. I mean, if they want the 130 million tourists a year, et cetera, we have to, we're part of that mix. We're absolutely part of that mix because we provide that mass form of travel, be it pilgrims, be it worker traffic, or be it leisure traffic, or VFR. We are the solution to that.
Let's take a quick look now at some of the other stories we're following through from the past week. Saudi Arabia's AI company Humane announces that it's investing $3 billion in Elon Musk's XAI. This is part of its Series E funding round just prior to its acquisition by SpaceX. Well, this move makes Humane a significant minority shareholder, and it builds on a partnership announced at the US-Saudi Investment Forum to jointly develop 500 megawatts of AI data center capacity, underscoring Saudi Arabia's push to expand compute power and diversify beyond oil. The Saudi telecoms giant STC Group has reported record annual revenues of 77.8 billion riyals for 2025. Net profit was up 12.5%, excluding non-recurring items, while EBITDA increased just over 6%. Well, the year also witnessed the expansion of STC Bank to more than 8 million customers. And Moody's Corporation has announced the establishment of a regional headquarters in Riyadh. Well, the company, which first opened an office in the country in 2018, says the move reflects confidence in the kingdom's economic momentum. Well, in line with Saudi Arabia's regional HQ program, more than 600 foreign companies have established their regional bases in the kingdom. Now, for international companies looking to set up and scale in Saudi Arabia or more broadly across the region, there are multiple considerations. As with any new market, a new entrant needs, amongst other things, to consider legal issues, local compliance, HR, and payroll. One company with a strong track record in supporting companies to plug directly into the Saudi ecosystem is AstroLabs, which seeks to simplify and accelerate these processes. Well, we're joined now by the CEO of AstroLabs, Roland. Thank you very much for coming to see us, Roland.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Let's start off by talking about your company and what you do. Is it fair to describe it as a sort of a one-stop shop for companies that want to set up in Saudi Arabia? And just tell us what you do for your companies exactly.
Yeah, it's a very fair description, but I don't like it to stop at one-stop shop. We consider ourselves as a growth partner for international companies looking to enter and scale in the local market. So we connect global companies with actual opportunities. The one-stop shop is an enabler. A company coming from abroad needs to tick all the boxes that you just described in terms of licensing, regulatory compliance, local hiring and team building, offices, tax and accounting, all of the infrastructure needed in order to operate in a country. Granted, we deliver that through our services, but we also invest a lot in creating opportunities for the companies that we help soft land, one through and within our network. So we have helped expand around 2,000 companies to the GCC. 1,000 of which in Saudi alone. So that network in and by itself is a massive opportunity for these companies among each other. But also we've been operating in the region and building ecosystems for the last 13 years, 14 years now. And the depth is another asset that we make accessible for these companies. So we establish connections with government entities, large private sector players, ecosystem or industry or sector builders that these companies can partner with, work with, get investment from, and so on and so forth.
Okay, tell us a bit about who a typical client is. What does your client base look like?
So, as I mentioned, 1,000 companies in Saudi Arabia, spanning across 35 sectors. We're talking upper mid segment and massive companies. Some of them are publicly listed, Fortune 500 and the likes. Think of companies like Virgin Atlantic, we were talking about earlier, Black Lane, Vale from Brazil, massive mining player, London Business School in the education sector. Many tech and IT companies. So 25% of our customer base is tech and IT players, followed by consulting and construction companies. And the rest of the portfolio is quite diverse across many other sectors.
Okay, let's talk about the private sector a bit in Saudi Arabia, because it represents about 51% of the economy now. It's grown from 1 trillion Saudi riyals a decade ago to more than 2 trillion now. Right. What does the market look like? And where can we see that shift most easily on the ground, Roland?
So our view on the private sector development is primarily through the lens of the international companies coming to the market, where we have seen breadth. So I just said 35 plus sectors, companies that are spanned across the economy that are coming not only to explore the market. So 5 or 10 years ago, it was more exploratory. Now it's depth also. So companies that came to Saudi Arabia 5 years ago just to explore or through just a representative office are now at the full establishment of their regional headquarters, full on hiring, investing, building local partnerships, and contributing to the development of the private sector. So that's one angle we see the development of the private sector in Saudi through. The other one is the role of the government that in the last year especially has started creating more space and opportunity for private sector players, both local and foreign, to contribute to the building of the economy. So the economy is moving from primarily government-led into more of a partnership between government and more private sector players, whether through public-private partnerships or through creating opportunities for companies to come and invest and build their local manufacturing plants, or to create local teams beyond commercial teams, especially in sectors like consulting or I mentioned manufacturing and many others.
Okay, and obviously you've seen all these companies enter the Saudi market. Lots of companies are doing that at the moment. Some 600 companies decided to make Riyadh their regional headquarters in recent years. Do you see time and time again companies making mistakes when they enter the market, especially if they're not having their hand held by a company like yours? Do you see companies arriving with misconceptions about the Saudi market?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been doing this for almost a decade now, and the mistakes are almost a playbook now. Mistake number one is not committing to the market, thinking that this is a market you can get the upside from remotely or by under-committing, and that is totally not true. The Saudi market is indeed a massive opportunity. if you invest properly, if you play the long game. This is not a quick buck market, especially not now, but it's rewarding for those who have a plan, show up, invest, are based in Saudi, build local teams, rely on local content and local talent, build partnerships, and try to, solve on what they are strong on and rely on local players for what they need to build capability on.
Okay, let's talk a bit about the media sector in Saudi Arabia. It's forecast to triple to 47 billion Saudi riyals by the year 2030. What does that tell us about the growth of the creative and media sector in the kingdom?
So the creative and media sector in the kingdom is one of our most exciting and strategic sectors for the next few years, primarily driven by the opportunity and the growth of the sector. So if you look at the different subsectors of the creative and media sector in Saudi, it's either upper single digit or double digit growth, when the global average is 3 to 4% max. So at the least it's 2, 3, sometimes 5 times growing faster than globally. So that is one. It's driven by the fact that the Saudi market is one of the largest consumers of media, entertainment, driven by a young population, massive mobile penetration, purchasing power, and a few other things. So there is demand, there's growth, and there are some anchor events that are bound to happen. Expo 2030, World Cup 2034, that also create a pull power to more companies coming to Saudi. That being said, it's important to not think that the media sector is a new growing sector in Saudi. We've seen early movers from back in 2018 with some companies like Augustus Media. That was one of the very few companies that we established in Saudi Arabia, and gives you the great example of not the mistakes, but the right playbook implemented, where from day one, local team, local leadership, investment in infrastructure. They now have a local production facility, studios, and the local teams, and the entire value chain. And they've been growing massively in Saudi. Then a few years later, we saw another batch of joiners who saw the success of the early adopters, like Augustus Media. We had companies like Footballco that owns Goal.com, who again played the right playbook and came to Saudi, now have their RSQ, started hiring from day one. You cannot do media and content remotely. You need to fully embed in the local ecosystem, fully rely on local talent, and then infuse it with your expertise and your capabilities. And Footballco did it really well. They have now massive reach in Saudi, and I think it's one of their fastest growing markets too. So we're excited about this sector in terms of opportunities. And especially about the announcement that we made late 2025, us joining the Riyadh Creative District, which is a partnership with the Royal Commission for Riyadh City. Very ambitious project that is currently in full rollout mode to establish a hub for the media, creative, tech, and education sector, serving the creative industry out of Riyadh.
Okay, I'm told we're out of time, but really appreciate you coming to see us and sharing all of that with us. The CEO of AstroLabs, Roland. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Now, Formula E continues to expand its global footprint while promoting sustainability and technological innovation in electric racing. And Saudi Arabia is now a key stop in the Formula E calendar. Well, following on from the success of the 2026 Jeddah E-Prix earlier this month, we're going to turn our attention now to this increasingly popular motorsport in which the cars actually have faster acceleration than Formula One vehicles. Well, we caught up with the CEO of Formula E, Jeff Dodds, on the sidelines of the Jeddah Corniche racetrack, and I started by asking him how important the kingdom is to the sport and to its long-term growth.
We've been racing here for a long time. The Saudi partners have been incredibly important to us. So we have sponsors that are Saudia, the airline, SABIC, the chemical company, and the PIF, the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. So we're well supported by not just the businesses in Saudi, but also by the Saudi government here, who allow us to come and race on this incredible circuit. So we've had many enjoyable years here, and our hope would be to have the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as part of our race schedule for many, many years to come. So no, incredibly important part. It's also the first night race we do in every season. So we go from these kind of more traditional styles of Grand Prix, or E-Prix as we call them, to this first night race, which is two races on Friday and Saturday night in Saudi, at night with the drones and the fireworks and this incredible backdrop here. So it marks a real spectacle in the calendar for us.
Well, given the relative newness of this sport, I went on to ask Jeff about how fans can connect with and follow Formula E, and also what sets it apart from other motor racing events. Here's what he told us.
We are relatively new. We're in our 12th year, as you said earlier, and that would compare to someone like Formula One that's 75 years old or 76 years old this year. So we are comparatively a newbie when it comes to motorsport. If they were to come though, and they like motorsport, the first thing is there's a lot of familiarity, right? You've got open-wheeled, single-seater racing cars screaming around here at incredible speed. The drivers will feel familiar to them. The setup will feel familiar to them. Maybe where the differences are, the first thing is we're all electric. So we're pure electric powertrain, which means 30% faster accelerating than a Formula One car. So they explode off of the line. Much more close combat racing. So the cars are much more tightly packed, which means you've got many more overtakes, much more sharper elbows. They don't reach quite the same top speed, but then they don't need to, because we're on circuit layouts that are much more tightly packed together, much more challenging. So I think if you came to watch it, the other big difference, of course, which everybody will reference, some people love, some people don't, is the sound is very different. So these will sound more like fighter jets, that very different sound to a traditional roar of a combustion engine. So I say if you're coming to watch it for the first time with a family, actually you can watch the racing, enjoy the racing, still talk to the people with you, and maybe you go home with slightly less of a headache. But if you're more of a traditional motorsport fan, you are going to find that different.
Well, Jeff Dodds has said that Formula E is like a living laboratory. He explained to us as well how what happens on the racetrack can be applied to electric vehicles in the real world.
Because we're relatively new technology, so the combustion technology is roughly 130 years old. So it's been in cars for a very, very long time. So any real benefits that can come out of that technology have largely been extracted. Battery electric vehicle technology is really only about 15 years old in terms of being on the road. So we're still unlocking benefits to that technology very, very, particularly in things like batteries. So the stories are not ours, but the stories belong to the individual manufacturer teams that are in this championship. So whether it's Porsche or Jaguar or Nissan or Stellantis, it's Mahindra, it's them that are unlocking the benefits. And you could talk to someone like Jaguar. Jaguar tell a lovely story of they discovered something in the way that the software worked between the battery and the powertrain on the racetrack, that they were able to update their road cars over the air with that upgrade in the software. And almost overnight, I think you had, it unlocked kind of 20, 30 kilometers more battery availability and range from something they learned on the racing track. If you look at the new Porsche Cayenne, for example, the new all-electric Cayenne, it is stuffed full of incredible technology, a lot of which has been developed here in their racing program. So yeah, we're very much still seeing tech move its way from the racetrack into the road cars of our manufacturers.
And finally, Ramadan is well underway, and that means brisk trade in many of the markets across the kingdom as people stock up on fresh produce for the iftar. Well, vendors at Riyadh's Al Rabwa market say that there has been good turnout with shoppers. There's also reported to be strong demand for dates, coffee and fruit juices right throughout the month. Well, let's listen to what one shop owner, Mohammed Abdul Rahman, had to say about consumer habits during the holy month.
The turnout every year is the same and demand is the same. Thank God, it's a good turnout. It gets more active naturally during Ramadan in the dates market because dates are an essential part of the iftar meal in Ramadan. In Ramadan, the demand and consumption naturally doubles compared to regular months.
Well, the Kingdom's moon sighting committee spotted the crescent moon last week, heralding the arrival of Ramadan. Well, as the Islamic month of fasting began, thousands of worshippers have been gathering at the Grand Mosque in Mecca. Well, the holy month is one of the busiest periods of the year there, drawing visitors from across Saudi Arabia and indeed from the entire world. Well, thank you very much indeed for watching. We wish you a Ramadan Kareem, and we're going to leave you with these pictures. Thanks for watching.